once again for the third round of play. Again, in this lobby, we have got the players who are on the very tippy top, and we have the players with the most room to grow, which means if any of our bottom 4 players come out of this lobby with a top 4, that's Missbullyz, Barry, Badden, Luxor, and Genre's Pet Dog. If any of them hit the top 4, they will have improved their circumstances. If Joshy Chan, Temlozz, Laser Octopus, or Alex M come in the bottom 4, then they will have dropped down the standings.
We are currently following Genre's Pet Dog here, and they have had a hell of a couple of drops to start things off. Already 2-starring that Shen, getting a couple of bruisers out. They've got themselves a BF and a Needless just hanging around on the bench as well. They'll be pretty happy with how this opening has gone for them.
Notable, Genre has placed 8th in their 2 games so far, so they are one of the players who absolutely has to improve their fortunes in this game, or their run is basically done. But Prismatic lobbies coming in. These are the most volatile, Greyheart, and this is probably going to be the best news possible for Genre's Pet Dog to mix things up.
Well, we'll see exactly what they opt into. The Dragonmancer crown might be tempting. However, there are decent options out there as well. As I say, Prismatic, it's so important to go big and to get it right and to play things out. You can just have things fall into your lap absolutely perfectly. I had a game earlier on where I was able to hit level 10. And did you know at level 10, you have a 0% chance of finding 1- and 2-star units?
I can believe it, especially if you start getting the Badden. The Cybernetic Shell will be the choice for Genre's Pet Dog. I'm a big fan of this personally because, as we've seen from a lot of our lobbies, there is some amount of AP going around, but most of the comps are running AD in some capacity. So a ton of extra armor, raw stats is a great way to get a strong start, particularly with a 2-star Shen.
And that's going to be doing a hell of a lot of tanking with that Steadfast Presence, getting Needless on top of it as well for good measure with the BF. Popped onto the Ezreal, who's only 1-star, but it's going to throw out those Mystic shots, slowly taking down that Shen, that set before the Shen can be ripped through. The Spear of Shojin and Nivit is going to do a decent bit of work, but it's now going to just be the straight out 2v2 battle between these 2 level 1 units. Karma's left on their lonesome. They're not going to be able to do enough with the Soul Flare, and that's just going to be a nice early win for Genres to start their fortunes off in a better way than in the previous lobby.
All right, so Genre, good start. Let's go and take a look at the player you pointed out before, though. Temlozz, with the 2 firsts coming out of the first 2 games, will go straight in for Jade early on. And of course, we've seen what damage a Jade comp can wreak.
We have. I said how contested Shoyu was going to be in this lobby, and I think we're just seeing yet another sign of it now.
So for Temlozz, they've got themselves a pretty decent item set up to start things off. Certainly more on the AD side of things. Of course, that Cybernetic Shell's going to work out pretty well. Luxor, with the Evoker setup, I'll be fascinated to see if they decide to go for anything spicy there.
Yeah, it's the opportunity too. When you get those 4 Evokers going, they certainly do get all that extra mana burst. And right now, things working out all right for them. We saw that, not Temlozz. We previously, who was it we were watching? Genre's Pet Dog earlier on.
Yeah.
We saw them having to go up the Anivia with the Spear of Shojin. This time for Temlozz, it was not meant to be.
All right, so we've got some other players, of course, who are particularly notable coming into this lobby. So Joshy Chan is doing very well for themselves as well. Of course, we remember them from our previous game, putting on a pretty impressive performance. That Whisper Deja, I think we saw it's been pretty controversial in the chat, but they're back to their good old ways again, going back to Mirage once more. Let's see what it's going to be. It's going to be Pirate's Greed, which of course is one of my favorites because it's the most silly.
I think there's an argument made that it's the weakest of the traits. However, at the same time, it can provide such a major boost if you're able to get up to that high level of Mirage early on. So an early Deja could completely change this entire game for Joshy Chan.
Oh, for sure. I mean, having absolutely no combat power coming out of your augment whatsoever, out of your trait whatsoever, it does tend to be a pretty big thing you're missing out on, but absolutely, if you can hit through to the Mirage 8, where you can hit I believe the Admiral's chest, you're getting full items dropped. It's pretty bonkers, but it's still good enough for Joshy Chan with a relatively generic item set and a generic augment. They don't need to stay in Mirage long term. They can just pick up, the free money they're getting from Mirage is around 2 per round, build a level loss streak as well, and end up getting up to the higher levels massively faster than anybody else.
Coming up to the first carousel, however, they're going to take a loss against Barry Badden. I know you've been desperate to talk about them, so hit me up. Go on, Counterfeit. Drop me the knowledge on the Badden.
All right, Barry Badden, one of my favorite players, hasn't found the level of success I would have liked from them so far, but they are legendary in the scene. Why, you ask? Well, you know, if you've come across them even for a moment before, they are one of my most vocal players, waging social media campaigns to enable them to be the best one trick they can be. They come into lobbies saying, I am going to be running this particular unit. You know, before it was Fiora, I think now it's Xayah. And saying, if you can test me in any way, I will blindly pursue this path to the grave, so you better get out of my way.
Oh dear. Well, let's have a little look at what they've been doing so far today. It's been a Xayah that they popped a 5th on in game number 2, just a standard Jade composition in game number 1. So if they're going to be another person contesting the Jade this time around, that could be interesting. But it looks like it's going to be the Xayah instead, given that they're getting those early rage wings.
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, Barry's not in the best spot right now to be one-tricking, considering, as we talked about before, Xayah isn't on top of the heap. We do know there are certain situations where Xayah can do relatively well, but we'll see if Barry does. As I said in the chat, Barry is absolutely everywhere. You might have heard of them in lots of different contexts as well. It's always nice to see a player who kind of, you know, will stand out from the crowd, even if the results aren't necessarily top of the heap quite yet. For Barry in this lobby, they're doing pretty decently.
They're doing okay so far. Up in 3rd place, we have got 2 undefeated individuals in Alex M and Missbullyz. Missbullyz, who we followed last time around, got an early 3rd place before dropping down the standings in game number 2. When I hear Barry Badden, I don't know if this is just a me thing or if it's meant to happen, but it immediately makes me think of the show Archer. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but I really wish we had a second player called Barry so we could call them Other Barry.
I've not seen it, though I have meant to watch it for quite a long time. It's definitely part of the genre of, you know, of cartoons that seem like, you know, on first glance, like, hey, it's for kids. And then you realize it's very much not.
It very definitely isn't. I'm just seeing a couple of people mentioning that Overlay at the minute is saying it's game number 2 of 6. It is indeed game number 3.
Oh, that's right. Yes, sorry, I need to change that.
Sorry, I didn't know if that was a you or if that was on the stream thing, but either way, we are. Oh, well, there we go. We are on to game number 3. Quite an important game. First one of 2, which will have the same players in these lobbies. And these are players who are really now, if they got good results earlier on, they are within touching distance of being in tomorrow's big main event. There are other players who find themselves already knocking on heaven's door if they're not able to pick up wins here.
Yeah, so as we kind of talked about before, and a lot of time the Swiss setup will put the best players against each other exclusively, which means you're kind of punished for doing well in your opening games. In this tournament, no, it's literally true. You know,
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you, Peter. I know what you're saying is true. I'm just loving that chat is now just filled with Archer quotes.
Oh no,
I did this and I'm proud of myself.
You've unleashed the beast. I don't even know what's going on anymore because I haven't seen the show. See?
Benoit. Anyway, so we are going. People are asking about seeing the points for each player. Do you believe is there a sheet out there that we can show people?
There is a sheet. I will drop it into the chat right now so you can see. Unfortunately, we don't have the bot commands to it, but if anyone who's watching, who's sort of watching longer term, if you could copy that sheet, and whenever people do ask for it, anytime that someone asks, anytime that any of you guys can drop in the sheet for other people, it will save them kind of getting frustrated because it's not showing up. I will do my best to be on top of that, but there's a lot of stuff going on here, and we're very, very small crew. It's basically just us two doing everything, so we will miss your asks for the score sheet. So please, Twitch chat, help as you've never helped before. Wait, no, that's what
I just want to say as well, like Peter just said, it's just us two. Let's make it abundantly clear. Doing the heavy lifting is that man Counterfeit Cast right now, who's not only keeping the stream running, doing the great casting as well. So a big shout out for all the effort they're putting in, keeping things running as smoothly as could be. Right now, however, things looking pretty smooth for Missbullyz, looking to pick up a 6th win in a row. They'll have to do it up against this Anivia, who has now been absolutely clocked before they could throw down that icy damage. And yet again, the win streak continues for Missbullyz.
Yeah, I love what we're seeing here. And also, just before we move completely on from the previous point, of course, shout out to our admin team who are working very hard behind the scenes. It's been a super smooth tournament so far. Don't want it to diminish what they've been doing.
Of course, yeah.
And we've got our second tournament coming in, so it will be gold. The party favors is a potential choice here, but it's going to be fully generic. Missbullyz, I love the setup she's got going on in the early going. She's kept things super generic. We've got the best friends, super generic. We've got Ascension, super generic. We've got the item set so far, which is roughly generic. The Shojin is probably the only thing that pushes us towards AP rather than AD. But to get a win streak going with just the pure strongest board, that is a really well played early game.
And I think this could be one of those games where the composition I was talking about earlier maybe starts to come in, where we see that Senna turn into a Sona rather than the Corki, and all of a sudden it's already set up for the Shojin, maybe coming into a Morel Nomicon as well. There's real opportunities to transition this comp quite nicely, though, because of the fact they've gone more generic with the augments.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. Temlozz has got one of our very rare sets showing up. Sadly, it's not a set reroll, which is definitely my favorite, but just a very, very good item holder for the Shio. You can see right now, he's doing a pretty good amount of work, even as a 2-star 1-cost with the Dragon Monster buff in. This could actually threaten Missbullyz win streak.
This is first versus last, and at the end we see why that's the case, because though the threat was there, there are 4 strong units still remaining for Missbullyz, who continues to bully the opposition and does it so well. 7 wins on the clock.
And it's worth noting that while Missbullyz has a name that suggests that she might be a bully, actually one of the most delightful people I've seen as a streamer. She calls everyone sweet, which honestly, everyone should experience at some point in their life, just being, being addressed as sweet. It's an incredibly British thing to have happen, but I'm glad it exists on the internet.
Big shout out to this board that Missbullyz is running as well. It's one of the only ones that I've sort of not got my hands on when it was limited availability, and I am having severe jealousy right now for all those Poros.
Look at those Poros! Look at them! Oh my gosh, I remember when they first came out with Poros, I'm thinking, there's no way Poros will become a huge success to define, not just League of Legends, but I guess Riot Games in general, but turns out I was wrong.
I feel like it was like kind of around about the year of when Braum was released that they really started to become a big thing, and they had their own little storyline with him and everything, and that was a truly terrific time. You were saying there was threat for Missbullyz in the last round. I think there's even more threat coming out of this time, going up against the Badden, who is just taking out unit after unit, leaving only this 2-star Jinx. They'll be able to pop the Chompers down. It'll remove one more unit, but the win streak is gone for Missbullyz. Only Alex M now remains with that unbeaten scenario. They themselves under threat. And they are just about going to lose. And of all people, it's to Temlozz that we saw earlier on.
The 3-3 round of death. No one will stand unfettered. But, right, Temlozz, I think it's a really good player to mention at this point. We'll come across their board once we're done with this particular carousel. They are a player who had the spotlight most fiercely shone on them coming into this round. And they are in big trouble.
They are. Fortunately for them, having secured so many points in their early rounds, they're going to still feel pretty confident about being able to progress to tomorrow, but this certainly isn't helping their cause if things stay as they are right now. We'll check in on them in just a moment, but could you do me a favor and just switch over to Joshy Chan and see what's happening with those spatulas that have been picked up?
Ooh, good shout. It's going to be Tactician's Crown. So, yeah, for Joshy, this feels like a pretty good angle to be able to go into the late game. Very strong indeed. I noticed that, unlike nearly everybody else, they're actually trying to hold dragons on the bench right now, like they are running Dragon Alliance, but let me assure you, dear friends, they are not.
They very definitely aren't. Maybe hoping for it as a final augment, or maybe just stopping other people from being able to pick them up. We'll see exactly where they decide to pivot to as things go on. They're having a rough time at the minute, but having that extra unit out will definitely help.
Do you remember Joshy Chan was the one running the Mirage for the Pirate Screed early on, so I think that's what's helped get them to the point where they can afford to be messing around with a ton of different dragons. I know it's been one of the things people have kind of bemoaned about the set, that it's kind of hard to hold on to multiple dragons and have different avenues to go through, but Joshy Chan shows if your wallet is big enough, you can get away with anything.
Oh, a huge amount of damage just came in there, but this is a battle between 2 Anivias, and one is itemized, the other is not. The set, which you spoke about placeholding earlier on, is staying tanky long enough to let the backline do its work. That's why Luxor continues to win.
Yeah, really, really nice stuff. So that's the Evoker J comp we saw before. Let's jump around and just make sure we've got all of our bases covered here. So Barry Badden, Notorious, and we'll be back on the Zaya train once again. This guy just doesn't know when to quit.
The notorious Barry B doing pretty nicely so far. It's currently down on 5th place with the health, but pretty close to a few around them as well. It feels at the minute like we've got a couple running away at the top of the leaderboard between Missbullyz and Alex M, who had such long win streaks earlier on. Temlozz, who we bigged up in such a big way coming into this game, having the complete opposite fortune to that. I'm going to see Luxor versus Barry Badden on this one, though.
Yeah, as I said, we've seen a couple of these sets doing really well as item holders, and I think we're going to see it done again. Something Barry doesn't really have going for them yet is, while this is a Xayah-centric composition, and we've got a Xayah already, that Xayah is not itemized, and so can't tear through units, which she will be able to once she's got the Giant Slayer, once she's got the Rage Blade in pocket. That's when she becomes powerful. For Barry, it's not good enough right now.
I don't mean to be cynical or in any way to throw shade on players who are clearly not what they're doing and because they've got themselves to this competition in the first place. However, it feels like this tournament just might have arrived on the wrong patch for Barry Badden at a time where, if we're brutally honest, the Xayah just isn't that relevant.
No, I mean, as we've already discussed, I think that, if we're going to bring back a discussion we had before, in terms of viability, we're not talking about saying comps are playable or unplayable. We're talking about where they are the right thing to play versus when they are the wrong thing. If comp's really overpowered, then that generally means the right time to play it is all the time because it's so powerful. It doesn't matter if other people are contesting it. If it's if it's like a B or C tier comp, and I think this has been borne out by the some of the tier lists you'll see, it's not that the comp is necessarily terrible in itself. It just means that the amount of stuff you need to have come together to make it worth playing that comp is just a much longer list.
I think one of the things that I come across in terms of comments during just regular chat in games is just people who moan and they're like, oh, here we are, another lobby full of people who just take the most OP builds off guys. Like, well, yeah, because a lot of us just quite like winning games. And actually, if you want to get your LP up, you're probably going to go with one of these compositions that has been designed specifically to win you a game. We have compositions we know the synergies of. We know the best items for these units because people have practiced them for us. We don't have to have designed them ourselves. We're just using other people's information. That's kind of what you're meant to do. And it feels like a weird complaint. I like it when we see people going out and doing their own thing, creating new comps, and something mad happens. But if we're brutally honest, we're going to see the same 5 or 6 comps winning over and over and over again with just very small changes.
Well, I mean, this is, so we're going to get deep into the weeds here. We'll try and thread this in with actual game commentary as well between, I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of, I'm not sure I'm getting the terms right, but the innovators versus the refiners. So early on in the set, finding the strongest thing is a matter of trying to actually figure it out. Mm-hmm. And that's where the innovators who are trying different things can sometimes find comps which are much better than what anybody else is playing. Whereas the refiners are here in the end of the set where everyone's more or less figured out what the right thing to play is. And it's trying to get those couple of percentage points in how you play it that gets you over the line.
And that is what some of these players are doing so excellently, seeing the pivot both between what could be useful against another team's composition or also just what the game's giving you and what you're able to use. That's what some of these players are doing to the top level. That's why they're competing here. That's why they are only a few stages away from having an opportunity to even compete at the Set 7 World Championships.
All right, we're checking in with our friend Laser Octopus, going at 4 again. But exactly as you said, one of the well-worn grooves. Got themselves the needlessly big gem, which if they can get to go off, it's going to be a decent amount of money post-buff. Only needs to have 1 of every 2 units alive. Unfortunately, Idis is a little, no, not quite a little too weak. Just going to heal off just in time to get that bit of extra healing and the extra damage boost through. So that should push Laser Octopus across the line.
It gives them the chance to get the win, and Joshy Chan is losing units very, very quickly. But I think, oh wow! When it comes down to a battle between a Locketed Jinx and a Jade statue, it turns out the statue doesn't win.
Sometimes it does, though, if you get damage over time, it makes.
Yeah.
Let's check out what Temlozz is up to, though, because, again, they were the player with the 2 first coming in. We would expect them to continue to do well. But they are in a precarious position where they're on a win streak right now. But if that win streak gets broken, they've got virtually no money in the bank.
What do you think of the Xiaoyu placement here?
It's interesting. I think there's maybe a little bit of worry that for Temlozz, their only real damage source is the Xiaoyu. And I think, with the current placement here, this allows Xiaoyu more time to get going, get the Titans stacked up, and ideally getting to 25 stacks before they take major damage, which I think will serve them well against comps like the Siphon here, who would otherwise stand the chance of bursting Xiaoyu entirely.
Multiple nice ultimates from the Nico going to help out as well. Siphon will charge through,
Oh!
will be able to take out Shioyu in one single chomp. The 2-star Infinity Edge and Justice. Siphon doing great work, but not quite able to finish off the remaining units, and that is going to be a loss for Genres.
Yeah, we do need to check in with Genres as well, see how they are doing as our lowest placed player in the lobby. Every time I see it come onto the carousel, particularly when I've got, I know it's hidden for you guys watching, but I've got the mouse pointer on my screen, so I'm like, oh boy, when am I going to have to come out and start picking up items? Then I realise I don't get any items.
Oh dear. I mean, that's, that's often the situation though, when, you and I play double up, we're stomping the lobby so hard that we might as well not be getting items because we always get last pick. We're so good, man. We're so good.
So good. We haven't even
Double
got a
up World
teammate
Championships
yet,
when?
Watch out, guys. We'll be casting it while winning the Double Up World Championship. It's gonna be the same thing. Right, who have we checked? We haven't checked in with Genres Pet Dog for a little while, although we did see them in passing, and they've actually gone for a Dragon Alliance. You can remember it's Dragon Alliance because Alliance is a shield, Horde is like a little pointy up thing, and this will mean there's extra defensive stats here for our Dragon friends.
And that is going to provide a real point of power for this particular composition. It is one of the things that we see winning games over and over and over again. We'll see if that ends up being the case for Genres as they look to try and take down a laser octopus, which frankly is my favorite sentence I've said today.
I know, what a great name. The laser octopus was actually saying in the pre-game lobby how they don't tend to be a streamer, not so used to playing in front of an audience, but I think they're doing pretty decently well. I mean, having a name like that, I would watch a stream called Laser Octopus just out of principle.
Absolutely, and right now they have got good damage coming through from the Siphon. It's now got that Shimmer Scale item on top of it as well, and it does look like it's going to be enough that despite Lulu's polymorphing tricks, it is going to find a victory. And yeah, this is becoming a very, very interesting lobby. Earlier on, things were looking absolutely terrible for Temlozz. They're dropped way below everybody's health because of a win streak, even though they've now lost that. They've managed to claw their way back to the field. We've got ourselves 8 players, all separated by 31 points.
Oh, and it looks like we've actually got a bracket command set up now in the chat. So if you are looking for an update, that will take you through to the challenge site where everything is being run through. So ideal.
That is indeed ideal. I see a few people asking for the scores again. So, Peter, it might be time for that old command paste just to help a few folk out so they know where we're at here on game number 3 of 6 for today's games. And here we go. We're starting to see a little bit of damage starting to come out of this Xayah. Barry finally getting to a big spike, finds the feather recall, is going to stop the Siphon in place for just a moment, but they haven't got themselves either a Last Whisper or a Giant Slayer. So it's taking so long for those feathers to rip through the dragons. It does eventually happen, and now with that 41 stack Guinsoo's Rageblade, Xayah does their work.
All right, Barry, you've gotten the most hype out of anyone because I first encountered Barry in the open qualifying circuit, where at that point, they were still getting a lot of attention. Unfortunately, while they started off the open qualifier really well, I think they got a couple of firsts in there. They then dropped off a cliff in the later rounds. I wonder if that might be because when you're as much of a one-tricker as Barry is, a self-confessed one-trick, the people learn to play around you as you go through the tournament, and it becomes harder and harder to get those wins.
I'm sure there is truth to that. However, they've got themselves a nice third component for the Xayah, which means they're going to be able to outpour damage onto multiple sources. They still, however, don't have any of that shred apart from right now. They've got it on the Shen courtesy of the gloves. And yeah, no, I like what we're seeing coming out of Barry. It's a lot of fun. Whether or not it's enough to carry them through and out of 8th place, I'm not quite so convinced myself, but I do wish them absolutely all the best.
Got a 2-star Idis coming in for Laser Octopus. We got a 2-star Nico coming in for Luxor. Gosh, I actually kind of like being able to observe for myself here. Let's just go around and check out the kind of big events as they happen.
This is the 4 evoker we talked about earlier.
Oh, yes, it is. So managed to get all the way up to 4. So it's kind of interesting because we've only got the Anivia itemized right now. What this tells me, Greyheart, is we might be looking at a game with an Aurelian Soul as the last unit coming in, because otherwise I would expect to see the Sona getting itemized as the last carry.
Possibly. I guess we'll keep our eyes peeled towards what Luxor does. I'm kind of quite interested at what's been put onto this Yo-Yo. It's not doing especially well in this fight. It holds on for quite a while, gives Anivia an opportunity, but with the Ascension coming through, I think the opposition might have this one. Anivia is dead, and with no carry left, there's no leg to stand on for Luxor.
Oof. All right, yeah, certainly not a good enough board right now. Let's take a whip around and see what Laser Octopus is up to against Missbullyz. A very, very close round. Missbullyz actually getting themselves a very early Zoe. Let's go and check out what she's up to, because we haven't looked in on this Siphon Mage comp for a while.
That's a couple of Alshins on the bench there, so the opportunity to get rid of that. Now we put those items on to the Lasers Dragon is there. That could be something we see out of Missbullyz in a little while.
I'd like to set up here was, so yeah, we talked about a little bit about Missbullyz playing very strong early on, looking to try and make up for that 7th in the previous round. I think, Missbullyz, one of the players who, again, like Barry Badden, has done a fair amount in the open qualifier circuit, hasn't managed to make it through, to my recollection, to the Golden Spatula Cup's main events, at least not the latest stages. There's a hell of a lot of players to account for. Up against Genre's pet dog here. Keep an eye out, of course, for that Siphon.
Siphon just ripping through. The resolve is complete. The Infinity Edge is doing damage. Ascension clocks in for one of these two teams, and now, for both of these two teams, and so that all outpouring more damage, and it is Missbullyz who has more damage. Genres is going to drop down to 11 health. Temlozz just slightly lower than that, so both these players in danger of elimination just before the carousel.
Oh my gosh. Jersey Palo, thank you for the raid. Welcome to the stream. So I believe, yes, everything's up to date now. So this is the Northern Europe Superbrawl qualifier. So we've got all our teams in this particular part of the EMEA region battling to try and make it through to the Superbrawl as our 3-person team. They will then go on to battle in the Superbrawl itself for one of the 3 spots in the main EMEA finals. There are a lot of ways to get there. This is just one of the paths being taken as Missbullyz goes against Temlozz. This could be Temlozz's end of the line.
Temlozz so hoping to continue their winning streak today. Doesn't look like that is going to be happening. However, avoiding 8th place might be a saving grace as they look to push towards tomorrow's finals. However, just not meant to be. Missbullyz doing great work with that early generic setup through the augments, ripping through the health bars. Siphon survives. Temlozz does not.
Oh boy, so as we said, your Temlozz getting taken out in 8th was the most unlikely scenario, but it is the best case scenario for pretty much everybody else in the competition. It means the top amount of points has been brought down. The chances of making it in at the midpoint are now much higher as well. But now we've also got Genre being knocked out, but they made it to 7th.
Trying to remember if anyone was running Shimmer Scale and if this was a potential to get towards Shimmer Scale now, but I don't think we're seeing that from anyone in this lobby. So I'm expecting that to go ignored, as it well does. And as we come out of this carousel, only 6 players remained. Missbullyz is currently flying high on a win streak. Got I believe it was a 2nd in or a 3rd in game number 1. Was 7th, as you just mentioned, after that, but will still end up with a decent chunk of points if they can take the dub here.
Let's over here with Alex M to check out the 2-star Pike coming in. Unfortunately, not really offensively itemized, but we'll be able to drop a Zrot minion into the back line when the aggression turns onto them.
Could I see the augments there for a second, please?
Oh yes, this is a built different board. I was also confused looking at it and saying, why don't we have any active traits? And the only answer to that is, it's time to be built different.
I assumed that was the case, but I couldn't quite remember what it was meant to look at, so I just wanted to check before I said anything stupid. We can see now just how much extra damage that can do. Having that effectively set up on your board, this really is just an excellent example of a player knowing how to play different ways and to completely pivot the game. Corki, however, is not going to be able to rip through Xiaoyu, so despite all of that excellent planning, Alex M is going to drop further down the leaderboard.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a little bit frustrating for Alex M.
Aaron's on 1 health!
Uh-oh! It's barrier clock! The Doomsday clock is 1 HP to midnight. Barry! You were the chosen one! If you don't hit top 4 in this game, as we said, we've got 4 players in this lobby, including Barry Badden. If they go into the bottom 4, they are very likely to stay in the lower half of the table. For Barry Badden, Missbullyz, Luxor, and Genre's pet dog, of course, Genre, not possible to get anymore. But for those 4 players, if they can hit top 4 in this lobby, they've got the chance to climb.
Barry will not have wanted to face off against Missbullyz right now. Interesting positioning here of the Sona and the Zoe down the middle. They're not going to be able to catch on to quite as many things with those ultimate abilities. Nice Temper Fate is going to catch up on to the Barry's favored Xayah. However, it's already striking hard with 23 stacks of the Rage Blade. Pulling back with the Feather Recall. They're going to take out one, but now they need to slay this mighty Siphon. It's Siphon versus Barry for that last little bit of help. On the head of the Xayah. And that's all she wrote for Barry. That's how you get ants.
Oh my gosh, Barry. Barry, what are you doing to me? Oh, so later Octopus stays alive on 15th. Joshy Chan up at the top of the table, rolling through the lobby. And we get to see why people like Jade so much. This is, a pretty generic setup here for the Jades. The Xiaoyu with the with the rapid fire cam, which we'll be seeing a little bit more, is doing so much work here with Jade 9. And this is a comp where you can just run it through and run it vertical nearly the entire game.
Okay, well, with having hit Jade 9, that's certainly going to be pretty damn strong. We'll see if anyone's got what it takes to knock Joshy off the top spot. Missbullyz has lost that win streak, is, however, the closest competitor. Down at the bottom of the side, however, we have got Laser Octopus and Alex M, who led for so long in this game. Still such a close lobby, however, that it feels like there's some drama still to happen.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think, so Laser Octopus and I believe Luxor as well. Yes, both just went up to level 9. So while Joshy Chan might be on top, give them a few rounds to take advantage of this level 9, and we can have dramatically stronger capped out boards, which Joshy might not have enough in the tank to be able to deal with.
Oh, Siphon roars straight over towards the carries. Is close to that Sona, but not quite picking it off just yet. Charges back towards the meaty tanks, and now Sona's able to get yet more. Sorry, Anivia is able to get yet more shots off. But with the Xiaoyu still alive, there's good damage coming from multiple sources. Luxor looking pretty nice in this fight, but Missbullyz hanging on in there. Daisy, one of the last survivors. Heimer will get down. Missbullyz will yet again take a loss. Luxor pushing up into second place.
Oh boy, yeah, you do not want that Xiaoyu going after your dragon, because Xiaoyu just is the dragon slayer when it comes to the one-on-ones. Let's see, so we've got Alex M and later Octopus down the lowest. It looks like Alex M's going to be going up against Missbullyz next. Do you know how we know that? Because they've got Future Sight.
A nice little clue for us, and it's going to be a second composition with a carry Xayah. Admittedly, it's a secondary carry on this one rather than the main, and of course it is because we're seeing that built different setup, but it's still interesting to see that that's the carry that you would go to as a secondary carry in a built different line. Let's see if it works out right now for Alex M, who probably needs this victory to avoid certain death. We are going to see good damage put out by the Corki. Xayah starting to find a decent number of feathers, but having been caught out by multiple crescendos, hasn't been able to build up that Rage Blade. Siphon still firing away over for the opposition, charges through everybody, but now is the last unit standing, does not have enough in the tank. We'll get another charge off, will probably kill off the Corki, but no, the charged attack doesn't go onto the Corki. Look how damn tanky this unit is. Is that balanced? Is that balanced down a bit?
Yes, I'd say pretty much. I honestly don't think that's too much of a concern at the moment compared to some of the other stuff going on. But
I see a point.
Oh boy. So yeah, so Missbullyz on 17. We've got ourselves another lobby situation which we've seen earlier on in the competition, that everybody is pretty much on the same scoreline, and it's down to the matchup as to who's going to end out, even in the top 4. That's not guaranteed.
It absolutely isn't. In fact, if we turn our attention towards Luxor, as you just have very, very nicely, we're going to see whether this Evoker build can actually do enough to survive into the top 4. I'm not sure it's got what it takes. It's going up against Joshy Chan, who up until a moment ago was on a win streak. We're seeing the Xiaoyus duking it out up against each other, but the Infinity Edge damage is good coming out of Luxor's Xiaoyu. That's going to be enough to buy more and more time for these Evokers to do what they can from the back line. That's another stack on the Archangels, alongside the Morellos, alongside the Spear. That's going to keep Luxor in check. Joshy Chan will lose this one, will drop down to maybe even single-digit health. No, stays up. Oh yes, down to 8. But crucially, Luxor survives, and Alex M does not.
Yeah, that's a 7th, then a 1st, then a 5th for Alex M. So a middling performance so far, but I mean, this lobby has just been so wild that they could easily have gone first if the matchups had gone a bit of a different way. Alex Sam, of course, long time with tournament players, been absolutely everywhere for such a long time. But, you know, for me, Laser Octopus is one of the players who's standing out here. 2nd and 7th in the tournament so far. Also an amazing name. Maybe this is a chance to get that name out into the field.
It could well be. This could be the start of big things for the Laser Octopus. Big shout out to KSD, who says balance is a taboo word in TFT. I knew as soon as I said it, I was like, I said the B word. That's it. I'm done. I'll never cast again.
I mean, that's pretty much, it's one of those things we generally try and steer clear of, but we can certainly acknowledge where some things are strong, some things are perhaps less strong. For Joshy Chan, though, as we talked about before, you know, they've been sat at level 8 while we've seen multiple players go up to level 9, which means I think Joshy Chan might well be having to settle for 4th.
It could well be the case. This is so much power over on the side of Laser Octopus, doing very, very nicely in name and in nature. Good damage coming out of a now 30 stacked Rage Blade from the Corki. Just the back line to finish off. That'll be gone before you can say Joshy Chan is dead.
We'll check on the other fight as well, because Missbullyz is a real close one as well. I think Missbullyz survives.
Looks all survives. Ooh, 1 HP.
Oh my gosh. We're down to our top 3.
Missbullyz going full Barry Badden on us now, down to 1 HP. Yes, as was earlier said, they are indeed in the danger zone. And we are looking at possibly a game-ending fight before the Herald. If Laser Octopus picks up a win and their Ghost does as well, this is all she wrote.
All right, Missbullyz is a level 9, throwing in the Guild, the Twitch, for a little bit of extra attack damage. But this is what we're talking about before. A lot of times players are spending all their money just to get to level 9. If they don't have something amazing to put in right there and then, it's not a major power boost. Up against Laser Octopus, who has been winning and winning all day long. For Missbullyz, it could be another 3rd.
Hell of a win streak so far for Laser Octopus. Will anything disrupt them as they go up against this bard that's throwing out as much as it can from the back? Already catches 1 Tempered Fate. Will probably need to hit a 2nd in Ascension mode. Meanwhile, damage being put out. Silas tanking up as much as is possible for this beast with the chains, and it's enough to survive. It's enough to knock Laser Octopus down to 4 HP, while one of their ghosts kills off Luxor off screen.
All right, Missbullyz is going to be hitting a tournament high here. Laser Octopus did get a 2nd before, so they are certainly returning back to form. Missbullyz dancing on the edge of a knife here, looking for that last unit to replace the Twitch. They have got a chance
what's Laser getting out of the Herald, please?
Oh, yes, let's go find out. So we've got Bloodthirster for Missbullyz. For Laser, it's going to be an Onyx Spark. This isn't great for them because they do not have anyone who's going to be able to bring that up to the front line very easily.
No, that is true, and also not a massive amount of AP damage coming out of this composition either, so it's certainly not the optimal item to be getting there, but even so, you know, some extra defensive stats for somebody. Laser Octopus versus Missbullyz in a fight to the death in 20 seconds time. Place your bets now, folks. Counterfeit, what you saying?
I'm going to have a quick check and see. So it depends on this last roll down, I think, for Missbullyz. 2-star Bard, you gotta take that. You've got a chance to bring it in. 2-star Bard, you know, the difference there is massive because we've got several big bursts coming. If they come, no, they don't.
No. They're going into this final fight. They neglect the opportunity. They do it too late. Maybe just a slight error in judgment. Let's see if it costs them. Laser Octopus goes into this one strong. Missbullyz try and do what they can from the back line with this great damage coming out of the Zoe, casting freely. That is going to be a nice laser coming out, catching onto the back line. The Ascension kicks in, and now with the damage multiplied, the gold Nomsy is taken down by the platinum one. You can see just who's got the damage. That's going to be the double Knight's Vow Sona being taken down. The Tempered Fate catches onto Bard themselves. Your victor will be the Laser Octopus. Missbullyz taking a 2nd.
All right. Well, as I said, Laser wasn't sure about how they would be performing in front of a crowd, but apparently they performed amazingly. Really nice finish from them. I'm sure Missbullyz is pretty happy with that game as well, even if the end of it wasn't exactly what they maybe that she was hoping for.